15 most terrifying things people have seen. According to Reddit. Number 15. Hallucinations from delirium tremens. For those who are unaware, this is severe withdrawal from alcohol, which include but are not limited to confusion, shaking, and hallucinations. He goes on to say what hopefully none of you have or will have to experience about DTs is that even when one knows that you're hallucinating, not only do you see and hear shit, but your mind also tries to make it seem real. So, when I saw these ghostly black dogs in my bedroom, it was really fucking difficult to convince myself they weren't real. Well, someone responds. Getting my fiance through the hallucinations from DTs was terrifying as well. I'm not trying to take away from what he went through because I'm sure it was absolutely awful. He had gotten pancreatitis from heavy drinking and was hospitalized for 3 days. When he got out, he had trouble sleeping because of withdrawal. I hadn't slept in 2 days after his release because he would shake and have nightmares. Occasionally, I would catch a few hours in between watching him sleep before his follow-up. The day before he was going to see the doctor for his release checkup, I was a little relieved because he seemed to be sleeping peacefully. I fell asleep only to be woken up by him talking about a black dog outside and people running around our backyard. I told him it was a nightmare, and we even went outside to look. He went so far as to go into the kitchen to grab a knife to protect us from whatever was out there. I'm a small bit stubborn lady, and I told him that he had 2 choices. 1, he goes back to bed and tries to sleep and believes me that what was happening was not real, and we deal with it in the morning with a doctor or 2. I call the cops and get his ass committed. I didn't say it then, but I knew I'd likely put him on a psych hold if I could, and then make him go to rehab. Damn. He went to bed, and I laid awake for another night to watch him. It ended up relatively well. No commitment. He was put on anti-anxiety meds to help him sleep and is much, much better now. But the DTs are no fucking joke. I didn't even have them, and it was horrifying watching the person you love trying to convince you that there's a giant dog in your backyard or someone is walking on your garage roof in the middle of the night. It was even harder trying to decide if you should try to keep him out of the hospital because he might hurt you or himself. That part was equally terrifying for me. Sorry, that got long. I hope you're doing better, and I wish you a great deal. Now look, I'm not going to be one of these people diving off into some sort of paranormal explanation for something that maybe has a logical explanation, but I'll say it like this. Don't you think it's a little weird that 2 people going through what they would, describe as hallucinations both saw a black dog? A black dog. Pretty specific. All I'm saying is, there are things happening all around us that we can't see because we're not equipped to see it. And in the same way that a person in darkness can equip night vision goggles to see what they otherwise wouldn't be able to, or a scientist could take a microscope and look with a better eye at things that our eyes can't see without a little bit of assistance. Who's to say that some of the shit that they're seeing isn't real in a certain way? Number 14. Uncle, help me. My little brother's 4-year-old daughter called to me from the back deck. She had been cornered by an adult coyote. I charged through the screen door, scaring it away. That was the most afraid I have ever been before, and I think I cried harder than she did. Ugh. She'll be 30 in a few months, and at Christmas dinner this year, she and her husband introduced the family to their new son. Before she handed him to me, she whispered to him, "This one will always protect you." That's awesome. That's awesome. Number 13. I think the scariest thing that I've ever seen was when I worked in a nursing home. We had a patient there for rehab, but she didn't want to go home to her husband and she refused treatment to get better. So, when her insurance ran out, because she was just supposed to be in there short term, she started to quit eating, and she was diabetic. She refused her meds and then all liquids. I don't know if it was her attempt of suicide or what, but she always said she couldn't go home to her husband. I was an 18-year-old CNA at the time. I didn't think how maybe it was because he was abusive or who knows what. The last 8 hours of her life were on my shift. She spent OT shaking and convulsing. And when she cried, or when she died, we went in to clean her before the coroner came for her. We closed her eyes and jaws, and they'd been open staring at the ceiling wide-eyed. We turned her in the bed to clean her, and we pulled her my way. Her eyes shot open, and some kind of bile shot out of her mouth and covered my scrubs. That face haunted my nightmares for weeks. Well, well. Number 12. When I was 11, I watched a lady get smashed by a train. She drove her car onto the track in front of the train and stopped. Then she got blasted. I was stunned, watching her car get pushed along out of sight. It took the train a long time to stop. Trains still make me nervous. It was a suicide. Number 11. I was watching the news and a guy came and shot the 2 people on it. I remember that one. I think he then posted it to Twitter. I'm not sure if it was real though, but I mean, whatever it takes to get people to watch TV. I'm sure it's happened, regardless of whatever we are thinking about was legitimate or not. I'm sure people have been shot on news, on live TV before, and it's pretty fucked up. Number 10. Oh, this one looks lengthy. I lived as a kid in Grozny, Chechnya during the First War. Oh shit, man, this guy's seen some crap. He saw a 15 to 16-year-old girl get jabbed repeatedly, as in stabbed, with a long knife at the end of a guy. It's sort of like a bayonet. After she was apparently raped, she died in agony after 9 jabs. Fuck me. Was walking down the street when I saw a suspicious carpet in front of me, so I walked the other way, and suddenly gunshots and yelling rang out at me. The carpet I suspected was a trap probably had a hole underneath. My God. Came sprinting home during the first wave of Russian bombardments to find my entire apartment building blown up. My mother could barely walk. No way she made it out. I am about 99% sure she died. A man who knew I stole from the camp saw me on the street and chased me for nearly an hour through a building. Damn. Rebels put prisoners in cages by the dozens and lit them on fire. Often, prisoners were civilians. A little girl was raped and found mutilated, with a massive cut through her vagina area all the way into her upper abdomen, ripping her nearly in half. Jesus Christ. During the first wave of bombings, I remember a very crowded street getting hit directly by an airstrike. Maybe 50 plus killed, 100 plus injured, all on the one small street. Literally the goriest thing I have ever witnessed. It was like witnessing hell on earth. Hundreds of people shrieking in agony all at once. Bandits and marauders slit a mother's throat in front of her children just to prove a point. Saw a friend of mine get raped and tortured daily in one of the bases I stayed at, and I couldn't do anything about it. He was just tied up against the wall, and they did horrible things to them. Got my shoulder ripped by shrapnel from a bombing and almost bled out. I passed out, and when I woke up I realized I wasn't gushing nearly as much blood as I thought, but the pain was tremendous. Running through sniper territory in general is the most adrenaline-inducing thing you can experience. Just hearing those shots ring out, not knowing if it's gonna hit you, it's like a straight shot of adrenaline. A girl, maybe 13, was severely injured in the street from a bombing, and I couldn't do anything about it because we were too far away from any base to help. Give me a second, I think the songs are changing. It's not exactly what I wanted. A girl, maybe 13, was severely injured in the street from a bombing, and I couldn't do anything about it because we were too far from any base or help. I came back 8 hours later and she was still alive, still shrieking in agony. I presume that she died. Fuck me. Okay, number 9. When I was little, I was biking with my dad through our neighborhood a few blocks from our own. While we were riding, I lost my balance and fell off my bike, crashing into a mailbox and knocking it over. I felt terrible, and when the owner of the house whose mailbox I had just plowed through came out screaming at me, I felt worse. I tried to apologize. I even offered to fix it. The guy didn't care. He kept pushing me down, yelling swears at me that I had never heard before, given my age at the time. When I did get to my feet, he kept charging me, forcing me to give ground and pushing me every time he got within reach. Then he started kicking me, hard enough to knock the wind out of me. But what scared me the most were his eyes, angry, hateful, and pitiless. I honestly thought he was going to kill me. As I had raced ahead of my dad, he was just turning the corner onto the street at this point. He took one look at what was happening, and that was it. He ditched his bike, charged up the street, and started pummeling the man. No words, just fists. I sat there in pure shock as I watched my dad beat this psycho bloody. Neighbors called the cops and came out to the street trying to break it up. By the end of it, the mailbox guy was bloody. A bloody, incoherent mess. The whole time I sat there in silence, just trying to piece together some reason or cause of everything that had just occurred. In the end, my dad was let off with a warning. Most of the neighbors backed him up, as they had seen the mailbox psycho beating me around before they'd come out to help break things up. I vaguely remember a few trips to the police station after that, answering questions, pointing at the guy who'd beaten me. I remember hearing some neighbor tell me he'd moved away after the neighborhood committee kept harassing him. Some lady told me, "He won't hurt anyone again, sweetie." Still never forgot, though. Those eyes still fucking scare me. I want to hope this mailbox man was drunk. Not that it excuses such terrible behavior, but fuck, man. You running up to beat up a kid that knocked over your mailbox? Come on now. Number 8. When I was in the 5th grade, I used to live with my grandparents in a very ghetto neighborhood, like gun store next to a liquor store and various gang wannabe punks in every corner ghetto. My mother and I just got back from our school's student concert night, when the students have to sing various songs and shit. I always hated it. Right when we got close, we heard a loud gunshot. This scared the crap out of my mother to the point where she swerved to the side abruptly. I myself was a bit unnerved by the sound and situation, but was naive and oblivious to what it all meant. When we got home, we saw our door with a bloodied handprint, and my mother booked it into the house. Inside was my uncle lying down and bloodied, with a gunshot wound around his left shoulder. I thought he was dead and started bawling my eyes out. He's like a second father to me. My mom rushed him to the hospital, and it turns out some thug tried to mug us, and my uncle tried to fend him off. When the thug shot him, he booked it out of the area. Luckily for my uncle, he didn't have any long-lasting side effects, and now has a pretty badass scar from the incident. Ooh. Number 7. A young woman, after getting hit by a car while she was walking across the street, she had blood streaming from her head and was making the most horrifying noise I had ever heard, like a wail and a scream. Also, a toddler hitting the concrete from a second floor balcony. Jesus Christ, who wants to see that? Oh my god, a toddler? Holy shit. That's parenting. Number 6. Walked into a hospital room to find my mother's godfather, who had been helping to care for Oh my god, I'm so sorry. Let me try this again. Number 6. Walked into a hospital room to find my mother's godfather, who we had been helping to care for, had passed away. That itself isn't terrifying. However, the position he died in haunts me. Holding the sides of the bed tightly, facing the ceiling, eyes still open, and looking like he was terrified of what he was seeing. The nurses stated that they had checked on him 10 minutes earlier, but the fact that he was stone cold, I suspect otherwise. It still twists my stomach thinking of it. That's a horrifying thought, that maybe you see something right before you go. Number 5. In middle school, my shop teacher had a heart attack and died during my class. We called down to the office and they didn't believe us, until we started banging on other classroom doors. How sad is that? Where the office ain't even gonna believe the kids. Number 4. Being drunk as fuck alone in absolutely pitch black woods at night, walking home from a party, taking a shortcut. I then out of nowhere started to get this unnerving feeling that I was being watched. That I couldn't quite shake off for about 30 seconds straight before hearing the whistling of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, somewhere very close to me. Now, that shit sent a fucking chill up my spine like nothing else before in my life, as despite hearing it almost as if the whistling was coming from right beside me, I couldn't make out where it was coming from due to how dark it was. I then bolted. No idea if that man was planning on harming me, but hearing that was something I'll never forget. I never take that stupid shortcut anymore at night. Number 3. The birth of my daughter. Oh, that's a different kind of terrifying. Waka waka. My wife was very overdue and finally got induced 14 days late. Even then it was a struggle, and a C-section was not a good option because of the scarring from a hernia operation she had due to celiac. Jesus Christ, that sucks. If you guys don't, oh my god, long story short, you know, when women get pregnant, they can push the baby out, which is like, Jesus Christ. Or they can have a C-section where they basically just cut the lady open and take the baby out. In this instance, it was ill-advised, meaning they shouldn't do that, cut the baby out, because she had an operation previously for like a mass that was growing inside her. So she was going to have to push this baby out. She was in labor for 36 hours. At the end, there were frantic doctors and nurses running around, and I didn't know what was going on. They pushed me away, and I could only stand and watch. Having 8 to 10 medical professionals urgently working on your wife and not knowing what is going on is literally one of the most frightening things I can imagine any expecting parent can go through. The umbilical cord was wrapped around my daughter's neck, and my wife's contractions weren't strong enough. They were using a vacuum and hoping that they wouldn't completely strangle my daughter in the process. They got her out, but she was blue and not moving or breathing. I could only watch. I was terrified and helpless, as was my wife. They got my daughter on a respirator immediately, and within 10 seconds got her breathing. Within a few minutes you could see color. Even after she was conscious, she didn't cry. She's been tough from minute 1. We were warned about possible neurological damage. My daughter is deaf in one ear, but otherwise very intelligent and a very strong young girl. Oh boy. I like this list, but I like me too. Do you like me? You don't like me, you fucking liar. I'm the terrifying terror. Yeah. Number 2. I spent my childhood living with my grandparents in a rural house on the outskirts of a massive mountain in Peru. Our house was located in this huge grass plain with no people around, and the nearest town was about 4 hours away from us. Basically the house of Courage the Cowardly Dog, the Andean version. There was a night when we were all woken by the loudest high-pitched screams ever. And they were coming from outside the house, our backyard specifically. My grandparents grabbed some long knives and told me to stay behind them as they opened the back door. I was 6 years old. When they did, we saw 10 of our 20 alpacas jogging around the backyard, dripping from the neck down with blood, even the babies. My grandfather almost went mental until he realized the blood wasn't theirs. They weren't wailing in pain. They weren't wailing or in pain, and the fucking screams kept going. They came from the alpaca shelter, where the other half was furiously jumping and stomping down their hay. Even when something had ripped open the shelter's doors, the 3 of us walked to the shelter and scattered the pack away. And there we saw it. A mountain lion had descended by its own to the plain and managed to sneak through the wooden fence of our backyard. It had ripped out the shelter's basic lock with its teeth and the unsettled animals went full stampede on it. The hay was the sack of skin and fur that remained of it, and its meat and organs were splattered in the shelter's walls. All the blood ended up in the animal's wool, and we even found broken teeth, claws, and gum pieces stuck at the legs of the pregnant alpaca the day after. The animals had crushed the lion so badly, my grandfather could not even use its skin. It looked like a shattered rag. I like the idea that that pregnant alpaca was like, "You got me fucked up." Yeah, you got me fucked up, mountain lion. We do this alpaca style. Hey Stripes, isn't there an alpaca in Animal Crossing?
There's two of them.
One's pink and one's blue.
Well, they're married.
They're married. Psh, what's your man got to do with me? Number one, anytime a child dies in the trauma room and we have to inform the family, who may be just arriving to the hospital or witnessing the whole rescue attempt, there's always a scream, complete unraveling of a person or people whose lives have just been derailed. I never get used to the cries, but have to keep things moving. That's crazy. I actually recently wanted to ask Reddit this question. It's just sometimes getting things to get traction on Reddit is like not gonna happen. It's like winning the lottery. You kind of just have to have a lot of people upvote your bullshit to get it to see the light of day. But one of the things I wanted to ask was like people who have seen children die as a result of like parental neglect. I want to hear those stories, you know? Like some mom was just doing something and then the kid fell in the water, you know what I mean? Not that that's like good or something that I'm looking for. I just want to hear the stories of the people who've had to deal with that. Let's get into some of the responses now. Here's the response on the one, you know, where they have to break the news to the parents that the child is dead. A response reads, "I'm a volunteer EMT in a very busy county in New York. I can confirm having family following the ambulance of anyone young and losing them in transport is the worst thing on the fucking planet. You want to be the guy that kept them alive, not the guy who told them their child died just by the look in your eyes when you open that back door." Ooh. And it's not like you can try to fake a smile or anything, because that'd be fucking weird. Scary stuff. Let's see if there's any responses to this alpaca one. So don't fuck with alpacas. Alpacas have a pack mentality, man. You like that?
I thought you were pulling facts. You were just trying to make a pun, weren't you?
I mean, I guess it's a pun. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this list. I'm gonna end it now before I cock it up with anything too, you know, ha-ha hilarious.
Can I